My name is Johan Blumhardt. I'm a sales engineer with WatchGuard Technologies. In this session, we're going to cover MFA, multi-factor authentication, and how you can use MFA to secure your SSL VPN connections. Now, as a side note, even though we refer to it as SSL connection, we are using TLS, Transport Layer Security, to secure our connections. This is a successor to SSL. Before we dive in, let's just go ahead and take a step back and define what a VPN actually is. A VPN, or Virtual Private Network, allows you to create a secure connection to another network over the internet. At WatchGuard, we have two classifications of VPN connections. We have a branch office VPN. This is perfect for connecting a factory to a head office. Then we also have a mobile user VPN. This is perfect if you're at home working or at a cafe, connecting back to the head office. Branch office VPNs and mobile user VPN licenses are included with any physical, virtual, or cloud firewall, and no additional purchase is necessary. As you can see, we have a few different options available for mobile VPN connections. You can actually read more in depth about it at this URL right here. We have an IKV2 client, we have an SSL, TLS, and then we have a premium IPsec client that's available to purchase from WatchGuard. Now, for the sake of this Firebyte session, we're going to focus only on the SSL VPN connections. The other ones will be in other Firebyte sessions. SSL VPN connection is available. We have clients available for Windows as well as Mac. You can download those for free from software.watchguard.com. If you're interested in Android or iOS, you still can run that, but you just need an Open VPN client to run the SSL VPN connection on Android and iOS. Now, one of the benefits of SSL VPN connection is that some networks are actually blocking IPsec traffic. SSL runs on port 443, so you're going to be able to get that connection even in those circumstances because very few networks are blocking port 443 traffic. Now, each one of these options do support MFA, including AuthPoint. So we're going to focus on how to get set up with SSL VPN, as well as secure that with AuthPoint. So we're going to cover that in this session. Now, as you look at our product matrix, each one of our firewalls, whether it's physical or virtual, comes with a set of VPN licenses at no additional cost. So you can see here we have our VPN tunnel count, we have a branch office VPNs, and we have mobile VPN IPsec. Now, there's nothing you can do to increase that count. You can't purchase additional licenses. So if you bought a Firebox T15, you only have 5 licenses, and those are total. So total meaning SSL and IPsec both count towards your 5 license count. If you had as another example, if you had an M570, you would have 500 branch office VPN licenses, as well as 500 mobile VPN IPsec/SSL licenses. And again, there's nothing, if you need more licenses, unfortunately, there's no way that you can increase that. For this Firebytes agenda, we're going to cover configuring AuthPoint, adding the Radius client resource, adding the gateway, downloading and installing that gateway, configuring the WatchGuard firewall, that includes setting up the authentication server, and configure mobile VPN with SSL, and that is also the AuthPoint integration. We will demonstrate installing on a Windows 10 client as well as installing on an iOS device. So the first step is to create a Radius client resource on AuthPoint. Now, to do that, you need to know how to get into AuthPoint configuration on the WatchGuard Cloud. And if you're not sure how to do that, for the sake of time, I'm not going to cover that in this Firebyte session. You can go to www.youtube.com/WatchGuardNW. And there we have it, new to MFA, start here. And I walk you through how to set up your WatchGuard Cloud visibility and AuthPoint account through there. So again, just to recap some of the AuthPoint main components that we covered in that video, the one that we're going to be focusing on right now is the AuthPoint gateway. This is your corporate network gateway. It's also your Active Directory and LDAP synchronization all in one package, your AuthPoint gateway. It also includes the authentication of Active Directory users and their passwords. So no passwords are sent to WatchGuard Cloud. All the verification happens through the gateway. The component that we're most interested in today for SSL VPNs is this Radius proxy. So we're going to go ahead and switch over and go ahead and get that set up. Now on my screen here, I have remoted into my server that I want to install the gateway on. So as you can see here, summary, I have one user, one group, one resource, not much more than that as configured. I don't have my gateway set up yet. So what I want to do, the first step is go in under resources and click on resource type. I want to type in the IP address, I want to select Radius client and add resource. Now from here, I'm going to name that resource something that's going to be applicable and is going to be easy for me to tell what resource that is. Because if you start to add on these resources, you can imagine you'll want to name those appropriately. Now we want to type in the Radius client trusted IP or FQDN. Now, in some cases, this may be a public IP address if you're going across the internet to do authentication. However, for this case, I'm going to have it be the internal IP or the private IP of my firewall. So I'm going to go ahead and input that now. Whoops. And now we are identifying, or we're setting the value sent for Radius attribute 11. So in this case, we could choose the AuthPoint group or Active Directory groups. So if we wanted to integrate with external identity with Active Directory for AuthPoint, we will do that in another Firebyte session. So for the sake of this session, we're just going to choose users AuthPoint group. We want to authenticate Jack as an example that we set up at the new to MFA Firebytes. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and type in a shared secret here. Now the shared secret needs to be the same from the client side as well as the server side. So I'm going to go ahead and click on save. Now keep in mind that gateway installation file is grabbing its configuration from this management side of AuthPoint. So you don't need to configure anything on that other than just point or create that key, which I'll show you how to do here shortly. So I go ahead and click on save. Now I want to go into my gateway and click on add gateway. So I'm going to say add gateway, and again, this can be let's just go ahead and name this Firebytes Gateway. And then we have our port. So I'm going to choose 1812, the standard port, and then I'm going to choose a Radius resource. I'm going to select the resource that we just created, the M370 firewall, and go ahead and click on save from here. Now it's creating a gateway, and you'll see as soon as it's done creating a gateway, it has this registration key option available. So what I want to do is grab this registration key. This is a unique identifier that tells which gateway points to which AuthPoint account. Go ahead and copy that, close that dialog, get this guy out of the way here. And then I want to go to General Downloads. So at this point, I'm going to scroll down. I see the Windows Gateway installer files. We see some system requirements there. You need to have Java installed. I'm going to go ahead and click on the Download Installer. Now once that download finishes, go ahead and run that. Click on it. It's going to prepare to install. Now I simply paste that registration key that I had previously copied in Gateway Registration Key and click on Install. Now it's only a short while for this to complete installation. So now we've successfully installed the WatchGuard AuthPoint Gateway. Go ahead and click on Finish. And you can verify that it's installed by clicking on Gateway. And in a few seconds, that gateway is going to check in with WatchGuard AuthPoint. Now you'll want to make sure that nothing is impeding that traffic from checking in to WatchGuard AuthPoint. The servers, and you can see it shows up Firebytes Gateway with IP address, and it shows as connected. So you have successfully downloaded, or you've created your resource. You've created a gateway referencing your resource, and you are now on your way to the next step. So now the next step is to configure the WatchGuard firewall. So at this point, we want to pivot back into our environment, and we're going to go point to our firewall here and go ahead and type in the login information, click on accept, and under authentication, go under servers. Now what we want to do is configure your Radius server. So if you don't have one, go ahead and add one. But in this case, I have one and I want to update it to my new settings. So in this case, I want to add my IP address of the firewall, or sorry, the gateway that I've installed onto. So just to clarify, the IP address of the server that I've installed the gateway onto. Go ahead and click on save. Would help if I match those. And now what we want to do is go under VPN, and you want to go to mobile VPN from here and go into Launch Wizard if you haven't previously set up the SSL VPN connection. So in this case, it walks you through a short wizard. So in this case, it's a Firebox domain name or IP address for the clients to connect to. Just going to type in my information, click on next. And now what I want to do is specify the Radius resource that I just created or modified. Go ahead and move that to the default. You simply click on it and click on move up, and that takes you to the default. And keep in mind, I am in the web UI here. Obviously, everything that we can do through the web UI, we can also do through Policy Manager. So if that's your preference, you don't have to feel like you need to go to the web UI to set this up. Click on next. Now, here's where we we're setting up our SSL VPN users as a group. We're going to go ahead and click on next for now, and I'll show you another step that we have to do after this. But one of the things that we want to do is define the virtual IP address pool. This is the pool that we're assigning to our users that are VPNing in. Just make sure that you have enough IP addresses in that pool if you had quite a bit of users VPNing in. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and finish that up and take just a quick minute for that to take effect. So now we have our Firebox. This is the configuration page. So anytime you come into the SSL management from here, or the SSL configuration, it will look like this rather than the first time wizard. So you have your primary IP address. So if you need to change that, you could. In this case, we are setting up a routed VPN traffic. Now we could do a split tunnel, meaning that if you wanted your remote workers to get out to YouTube via their own ISP connection without going through the VPN, so natively, you can say, I want to allow only to these resources. But for security, I would highly suggest to force all client network traffic through that tunnel. Here's your virtual IP address. We have our authentication. Radius is set up here. Now, the one caveat is that we haven't specified at this point which user or which user groups that we want to use the VPN resource. We could individually create them, or what we could do is create a new group, Radius group. And in this Radius group is now what we want to go in. If you recall, under WatchGuard Cloud that we went into, let me just get back there, Firebytes demo account. So under our groups, this is the group that Jack belongs to. And we can verify that by clicking on users. We see Jack, and he's in this group called Firebytes Demo. So what I want to do is essentially grab this Firebytes Demo, just copy that onto my clipboard, and I go in under group for Radius, and I'm going to go ahead and paste that. You could add a description, but it's not required. Click on save, and now we are saying that Jack, who's a member of Firebytes Demo group in the Radius server, anyone in this group can automatically VPN in. You also have some options here. Settings, user reconnect after a connection is lost, force users to authenticate. Now, one little tip and trick about this is that, as I mentioned initially, the SSL VPN connection is a little bit slower, and that's because it's on TCP. You could change the data channel to UDP. However, you're going to not have as many error checks present. So you might have some, your mileage may vary with that. You could just keep it on TCP though if you want to, and you can assign network DNS settings to mobile clients if you want. Click on save. And at this point, we are going to pivot back to the next step. The next step is install the client on Windows 10. Now, a little interesting tidbit is that you can actually go to the Firebox IP address /SSLVPN.html to download those clients, or you can go to software.watchguard.com, which is my preferred method. So let me get this set up here. Maximize this, and I'm just going to launch the browser on there, as I mentioned, and just go to software.watchguard.com. From here, you just choose your firewall. Now, as we scroll down, we have mobile VPN with SSL software, both for Windows and Mac. There's also additional client licenses, if you recall. Mobile VPN with IPsec software. This is a premium client by NCP. So if you wanted this, you could actually purchase it from WatchGuard. Some of the benefits are going to be a pre-boot authentication, or running your GPO scripts. And so if you have group policy objects or mapping network drives, you can do all that before you actually log in as that user. So it's always on. You can configure pre-boot authentication, as well as having a customization of graphics in that client. So I'm just going to choose this one. We're going with SSL for Windows. Go ahead and run that installation file. Click yes. It's going to walk you through a short setup. I want to create a desktop icon and a quick launch icon. Go ahead and click install. And once that finishes, we'll just have a few. After this one, we click on install or accept that. And now we want to launch a mobile VPN with a client. Okay, now we just need to put the information in for this connection. But before we do that, let me just bring over my cell phone here so that you can see this. So if everything is working, we should get my cell phone here, and we should be able to see both at the same time. So I'm just going to put in my information here. Put in Jack's information, username and password, click on connect. And at this point, it says Jack is trying to connect, sign in, gives you the resource. We're going to go ahead and click on approve, sends a response, and now we have successfully connected with Jack, so we can feel a sense of accomplishment. And this is for a Firebox SSL connection with AuthPoint that we saw here. So we can see here connected to, if I go to what is my IP address, it's going to be the IP address of that connection, my data center that I've VPN'd into. So at this point, let's go ahead and switch back over to the slides. So the next step is to install the client with Open VPN, and that allows me to connect with SSL VPN connection from my iPhone. So I'm going to demonstrate that now on my phone. So the first thing I'm going to do here, let's just get a browser window, usable browser window here. So we log back in to the firewall here, and we go to VPN. We go to mobile VPN. Whoops, timed out. Oh man. Mobile VPN option. I go ahead and log in, click on accept. And now I can go in and say download client. So there's a number of other things, right? So we can download the VPN client with SSL software right here. We also have a mobile VPN with SSL for Mac. Most importantly, though, we have this most important right now is that we have mobile VPN with SSL client profile. So I'm going to go ahead and download that. And that goes into my downloads folder right here. I'm going to bring over my phone as well. So at this point, I have installed the mobile VPN. So that is a free app. It's sitting on import profile. And I'm just going to go ahead and choose this profile. And I'm going to say share via AirDrop. Now there's a number of different ways that you can get that profile over to your phone. And go ahead and click on my username, click on add. And I'm just going to type in username, save password. And again, for this, enter in Jack's password. Click on add. and then it's going to say Open VPN would like to add VPN configurations. So at this point, I type in my password, and now it shows disconnected. So I can easily go in and say connect up. And now, because it's two-factor authentication, this is popping up on my AuthPoint app. I click on approve, sends a response back, and now I can look at Open VPN. It'll take just a second, and it should allow me through. Now we see Open VPN, my server address. I have my bytes in, bytes out, my private IP address, and my server public IP address. So now I know if I go back in there, I know that I'm surfing privately, and I'm connected as my remote user to my Office solution, my Office firewall. So now the next step is to take some Q&A. So let's get that going here. 1 second. We will put this slide up. And let's take my phone out of the picture for now. So thanks, guys, for bearing with me. Hopefully that went a little smoother this time, but certainly wanted to open it up for question and answer at this point.